right, let's jump into it. Where are we at? It's 10 past 11. So just a quick one. Just have a bit of a look over the upcoming news for the week and obviously the charts as well. Before we sort of get into stuff. So look, it's a pretty quiet week last week actually in terms of sort of data front and that, but it's always those kind of things. It's a bit of a sort of calm before the storm. And I think we've got a couple of bigger bits sort of coming up this week. So main one I think that the market's really looking at is CPI. And as you can see, so expectations are to actually see it sort of pop up a little bit over here. So like this was the big thing that Powell's been sort of more on the cautious side of, because he does believe that there will be inflation sort of coming through due to sort of tariffs and all this stuff. And it's really such a sort of sticky situation because like it goes on and off and on and off, but nothing's really sort of been like no deals have sort of really been struck yet. So it's a bit hard to sort of think how much of that is actually sort of flowing through to it, or how much sort of people may sort of just be, banging up prices and that just because that's the thought. Excuse me, that everybody could. So anyway, point being is it is expected sort of go a little bit to the hotter side, and that will sort of pretty much sort of be favouring sort of US dollar to sort of stay a little bit more bid, sort of certainly leading into that. And then if it does come in hot, we could see sort of US dollar sort of have a little bit of a squeeze. It did put in a pretty decent week last week, so I'll obviously get to that sort of when we get to the charts in a moment. So where are we at here? Actually, let's go through this. So Monday's looking pretty quiet, sort of data-wise and that, though we will probably see some fireworks in that tomorrow, just because, of course, over the weekend, there's a couple of things actually. We had Trump sort of announced the 30% tariffs against EU and Mexico. So I think that's going to give the market a little bit of a sort of shake there. Obviously, market last time when they mentioned tariffs the other day, we saw risk sort of take a bit of a hit. So probably expecting equity markets to get a little bit of a shake, at least on open. Excuse me, possibly sort of carry on with Aussie as well. Gold looks like it's catching a little bit of a bid, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with gold because obviously those last couple little drivers, which was like the Middle East situation, the market just very much used it to sell into. So it sort of like got bought up into the end of the week. In anticipation for probably the second point, which I was going to make, in that, which is that Trump's supposedly announcing something to do with Russia, sort of an important sort of statement also that he's sort of been making on Monday in regards to Russia. So we saw sort of gold get bought up in into the end of the week. And that, again, could just be a little bit of anticipation for these kind of things. And this is what I've noticed with gold as well, that sort of like coming into the ends of the week, it has sort of like, because so many things can happen at any time. And obviously, well, they were correct this time because, Trump sort of announced the tariffs or potential tariffs for EU and Mexico. So they were correct in that sort of sense. So it'd be interesting to sort of see what the market does that. I mean, the weekend markets are showing a little bit of a sort of gap up. But it will be coming into a resistance level, so I'll get to that as we sort of get onto the chart as well. But certainly be looking to see what the market does with that if they do decide to sell into it, and also if we do see US dollar firming up a little bit, is that sort of going to detract a little bit from gold as well? So that'll sort of certainly keep Monday quite busy with the tariff stuff, and obviously whenever Trump sort of comes out with whatever the statement is in regards to Russia as well. Apart from that, data-wise, a little bit of data in that, but nothing sort of major market moving in that to sort of start it off. Tuesday, we've got a little bit of China data. Where are we looking here? So retail sales ticking down, industrial production down, GDP down. So not looking great for China there. So possibly a little bit of a sort of weakening of the yen. Coming in at the same time as potentially stronger US dollar could sort of see that potentially sort of move up a little bit more. And of course, I'll cover it more when I get to the charts. We've got Canada CPI. How are they doing? That's looking actually sort of stabilized a little bit. We did have some Canadian jobs numbers out on Friday. And where are we at here? This was a big beat. This one here, look, 83,000 against 900, basically, sort of expected. If you do unpack it a little bit, like for some reason this Forex Factory just gives you a pretty baseline thing. It doesn't give you any breakdown of it all, but the majority of these numbers here, some like I think it was about 60,000, were actually part-time jobs. So when you see just like wow, 80,000 against the 900 expected, and also it looked like it was going to tick down. It looks like a big beat, but maybe if people are picking up part-time jobs means people are just picking up second jobs, which isn't necessarily a great sort of thing for the economy. Um, but yeah, so anyway, we've got Canada coming out there, so coming out at the same time as the US as well, which would be quite interesting. Actually, I'll be away. This will be the last video I do for a little bit, most likely. I will be sort of trading a little bit, but I'll be off to Hawaii for a couple of weeks for a bit of sun, a bit of a break from the markets, but never really sort of fully detached from the markets, but obviously not the sort of daily analysis videos there as well. So we've got Empire State. Again, look, it's still in a negative territory, but looks like sort of positive, like sort of moving in a positive direction there as well. So interesting to see how that sort of affects things. We've got a couple of Fed speakers on the Wednesday morning. Moving through, we've got CPI from the UK, and they look to sort of be there's a little bit higher, but looking to sort of stabilise. So it seems at the moment that very much, as you can see, like with Canada, America, that CPI is sort of stabilising a little bit globally, and sort of not quite sort of dropping because it's been dropping for so long. They're getting down to those like 2% targets, but they're just not quite there. We've got PPI on the Wednesday there as well. So this one's coming out, excuse me, also a little bit of an expected tick up here as well. And of course, that's just basically further down the line. That's PPI, so producer price index, opposed to the consumer price index. So of course, if they're seeing a little bit of inflation on their end, most likely that'll be an indicator. It might be sort of trickling down to the sort of end user, the consumer. So CPI. Moving along, real great deal sort of coming through here. We got employment from Aussie. It's an ongoing joke. I say it everywhere, but 20,000. Of course, they tipped it at that. Are they going to get close? Probably not a clue. We had a shocker one last month actually. Now that I remember, so I'm looking at this now here, minus 2.5. So look, it'll be interesting to sort of see how they sort of go with this one here. They've been drastically off. I mean, look, 89 one month, negative 2.5 the next. It's quite large sort of swings there. But Aussie has been quite stubbornly strong and just keeps sort of grinding up, grinding up. But as I say, look, it's basically off a weaker US dollar. It is actually holding up quite well comparatively to a couple of these other sort of majors, particularly coming into the end of the week. But that's only because they've run way ahead. You know what I mean? You got euro at sort of multi-year highs, pound's been ripping, but Aussie's still lagging around the 61. So it's just got over the 61% mark of October's sort of sell-off. And 1 second. Moving along here, we've got retail sales. And this is what I was saying. So last week it was quiet with the data, but now what have we got? We've got CPI happening, a couple of different CPIs. We've got a bit of China data, we've got Aussie employment data, and then we've got retail sales. So this is expected to sort of tick up here a little bit here as well, which is what you want to sort of see for a little bit of US dollars. So all the data at the moment, or at least the way that it's the expectations are pointing in the direction of what would be sort of positive for the dollar moving forward. Because obviously, sort of like retail sales, although they're kind of still weak, they're at least moving in that right direction, and that's what it needs at the moment. We got unemployment claims, which again sort of came down a little bit last week. Where are we at here? So 36 expected, came down to 27. So they're still expecting around that sort of 34 mark. So it'll be interesting to see if they can back that up with another 20s level there as well. Philly, what do we got? Philly Fed manufacturing, again, slight tick up. Look, it's still weak data, but it's in a positive direction. So that's a start. Move along, and then pretty quiet to sort of close the week out. We've got consumer sentiment and inflation expectations coming into the end of the year. And again, look, it's slightly ticking up there. So basically the takeaway with this, with the US data coming this week, is it's all tipped to be supportive for US dollar bid. So we'll see if that sort of follows through, if people try to sort of position themselves a little bit for that in the market. So flick along and have a look at a couple of the charts. So may as well start off with DXY because as we were talking about. So it's been actually sort of trading quite well off the lows here, although albeit sort of a little bit grindy, and it sort of half came out of this little channel for a bit and popped back into it. Excuse me. But it's finding sellers exactly where it should and then taking them out on the second run through. So, underside of this area here where it was support becomes resistance, sellers moved in. That's fine. Came back up, again, took that level out, went to the next one where the sellers had been previously, stepped back in, came back down, moved up, closed the gap, sold down, came up, hit resistance, this sort of previous support, which is actually a level from way back, but it's obviously something that sort of our market's been respecting more recently as well. And this one was a little bit tougher to get through because as you can see, it sort of came up here, sellers moved in as they should, and then had a second and a third effort, failed, and then sort of really a big sort of kick coming into the weekend, and hasn't quite got across the line there yet, but certainly, as you can see, it did finish on a little bit more of a positive note. If this is like sort of the move through the week, it's very much, not very different to what we have been seeing, basically, where they just smash it down and down. So it'd be interesting to see what happens, obviously, with this tariff stuff over the weekend, sort of come the morning, so come Monday, and obviously a whole heap of data coming this week. But little short-term targets. You've obviously got a little bit of a horizontal here, which seems to be coming in pretty much sort of confluence of this falling resistance through here, which would be this sort of bigger channel. Above that, we've still got that little gap to close, and then above that, if you can get up there, it's pretty clear air up until sort of 99, which of course was that big level that we were really looking for, 99.4, where the market just decided to kiss it and then absolutely melt down. I mean, what was that? Like sort of, what is it? About 3% or something. I think that's dropped off from there, from high to low. Yeah, 3%. So yeah, certainly took a little bit of a bath there. So look, it's slowly grinding its way back. I mean, it is still in this kind of bigger downtrend channel, but as I said, look, we've got a bit of data coming this week. It all looks sort of somewhat positive. And that's one thing to sort of say this is the data they're expecting. If they back it up and actually get those numbers, we could see a little bit of a squeeze and a push up here. I thought this might have sort of got up a little bit more of a push. It was quite quiet into the end of the week. But as we can sort of see here, this is an area that the market was holding, and obviously it's decided to sell it down. So the fact that they're back up on the top side of this sort of 97, 70 kind of level here, where it's broken out, popped up and come back, that's back test, and now sort of holding up towards the thing, puts it in a sort of positive kind of position to potentially sort of see a little bit more of a squeeze. And if that data does come in a little bit hotter, particularly I think CPI is going to be the biggest mover for the week, which unfortunately is while I'm on a plane, so it's going to be sort of fun seeing how this sort of plays out once I actually sort of get there. But yeah, we'll sort of have to see how the market sort of takes this. But yeah, there is potential for this to sort of push up a little bit higher here, I would say. A bit of a V-shaped sort of move coming up through here, but yeah, look, there's a lot of work to be done, and of course, these things can be derailed in a second. So we'll just we'll see how sort of how the market opens up tomorrow, and then see if we see any sort of positioning coming into these sort of larger sort of bits of data and that. But I would say most likely you could see like this close on a fairly positive note. I would expect maybe a little bit of a push up, maybe just into the 98s. I do expect this kind of thing to play out here. So a little bit of a reaction, like we've seen at every one of these levels here, see a little bit of a sort of sell down once we get into that level there as well. As to whether that sort of then goes whoop or back here and retests again and then starts to range through here or a little short back and then pushes through, we'll have to sort of wait. But I would say should this get a little bit of a push up early, we could see a little bit of top side, but I think it will in the short term be capped till we get a bit of that data to justify the move actually sort of carry on a little bit higher. Move along, we've got gold. This is what I say. So definitely started to grind up there through the end of the week. It's taken out those previous highs, and obviously found a little bit of selling into the end. Where we actually got up to 70, which is quite interesting. But this 60s area, where on this other chart, the 60s area through here, you can see that obviously that was those sort of previous highs after the rally of what did we get down to 50 or something? Yeah, it's 32.40s. After we got that little rally up there, that was capped off there. So look, we've got these new bits of data, sort of, or new bits of news, and with the tariffs coming through. If it can get above here, I mean, you are going to run into probably a little bit more upside resistance. I wouldn't really call this one so much. I'm not really interested in that as a level. I think that's kind of chopped through and disregarded that now. So I would say if you can get a close up around that 70, there's a good chance that we sort of test up towards that 90s level, should they decide to sort of squeeze it a bit higher. But this is what I was saying. Like if we look at the last two big catalysts, which were that weekend over here where Israel first bombed Iran, market smashed into it, sold into it. This one here was, actually, I think I've got annotations on these things. That little move there, that's when the US sort of bombed Iran. And as you can see, it's sort of like, market just sort of took it and go, okay, that's a little bit higher, bang, and they sold into it. So look, RSI does look like it could potentially want to push up a little bit higher. And I think there's room to potentially move. But yeah, as I said, I think the key will be getting a close above sort of 33.70. 33.70 will take out that wick from Friday. And then we could see a little bit of a sort of continuation potentially with that. Look, I still think that we are potentially going to be coming a little bit lower with gold. But in saying that, there's a lot of support around these areas. There's a big trend line coming through here as well. So there's a couple of sort of technical things, and the tariff sort of stuff was the big driver, going back to these levels over here. So see what the market does with it. But again, I think if the market sells into it, then I think that's a kind of a pretty much a confirmation in my eye that they're just using any excuse they can, which were the bombs, and now sort of like more tariffs, and the market sells into it. I think the market's become a little bit immune to because this was a fear factor move. This was like nobody knew what was going on, so let's just pile into gold. Now I think people understand that it's not the end of the world. So there'll be that initial fear of like, oh my God, well, tariffs, let's sell into gold. But at the moment, it's looking, I mean, this is just the weekend markets, but it's looking to gap up about $8 or so, which is not much in the sense of things. I mean, it's a little bit, but if the market just uses that and sells into it, to me, that's a confirmation after these two events that possibly they're just using any excuse to pump it up to then get a better price to sell. And generally, you're doing that because it's coming down over here. But I think sort of back underneath, sort of like 32.80s, a close down this area here will sort of give you a bit more confirmation to come down to mid 31s and that. And that could be, as I said, potentially if we do see US dollar catching a bid, because gold's it's ticking along, but you got to remember it's still very close to its all-time highs in that as well. So there's a lot of profit still on the table, and maybe the upside could be a little bit more limited in the short term. Look, I probably do think that gold is going towards 4,000 in that maybe in the next year or so. I don't know, but at the same time, these sort of things, it doesn't mean it can't sort of come down before it sort of flicks back up. So yeah, we'll have to sort of see how the market sort of digests this latest bit of news, and of course with that, what's happening with Russia as well, and that kind of bit of data coming out. So it's going to be quite a busy sort of Monday, I would imagine, just on those headline fronts anyway. Moving along, we got Aussie. Aussie very much just grinded into the end of the week, and that look, the recovery this week was insane. After it was just here we had that rate sort of call where they said, look, you know what, we're going to hold it, and when I saw that and I watched the press conference after, I did remember at the start of the year sort of saying that they wanted to see two quarterly CPI prints within the band kind of thing. I think we've only had one, and then obviously the next one coming up. I think it's the end of this month, maybe. So we'll have to sort of wait to sort of see what that is. I think that's going to be the big driver for it all. But they did stress, sort of Bullock did stress time and time again. Excuse me. It's the direction. The direction wasn't in question. It's the timing. So it means they are cutting. They are looking to cut. They just want to wait for that little bit of confirmation. But as the market was so heavily priced, everyone was tipping, it was going to get cut. You saw those positions peel off straight away, and then bang, came up here. It did undo the move pretty quickly, but of course, drifted up there into the end of the week. And that's despite US dollar obviously catching a little bit of a bid as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a tough one with Aussie. Like, it is still grinding up higher and higher. I I mean, look, if you look at every time it's sold down, how quickly it's back bounced up and recovered with these things, it has really sort of done quite well. This was that little box we were in on Thursday, I think it was. Yeah, it may have been Thursday. And I said, look, a close outside this box, that would be moving up to the top over here. Obviously, it closed under the box here. I was looking back down over this side here. So we'll see what happens. But obviously, you can see this is quite heavily where they're capping it at the moment. I think a close above, say, 66 opens it up, and then we look for like 20, 30 point sort of increments on the way up there. But for the time being, it is looking a little bit of sort of capped here. Again, I think this sort of tariff stuff's going to be sort of permeating across the market a little bit. We did have quite a sharp sell down here when we had that first announcement. Like, where was it? This little sell down here, some sort of tariffs mentioned there and sold down, but again, bang, straight away, straight back up into it. And as you can see, it's just really sideways grinding. So again, look, it is sort of consolidating at its highs, but as you can see, this is quite a strong resistance area here. So I think it'll be significant once it goes through, if it goes through. But at the same time, resistance is there. And if we see US dollar catch a bid, I think it's going to make it pretty hard for Aussie to take that next level at this point anyway. So I think there's still probably a little bit more of a potential for a range play coming through here. But I think sort of maybe underneath the 50s or above 66. So 65, 50s or above 60, 66 even call it that. Move along, silver absolutely exploded. So this is one that I've sort of liked. I've been saying I've been sitting on the sidelines. I've been looking for this move to come down here. I thought we have this big wedge. Let's see how this goes because obviously that is a big. It's the first time we've had a big candle move like that for a while because obviously we had this little move through here and then exploded. But that's going back to start of June. Wow, it's wild there. And really, we've just been in this little box for a long time here, and it closed out the top with a with quite a strong candle, and closed near the highs. But as you can see, as it is right now, there's your negative divergence confirmed with a move up higher. So I think the thing is with this, it needs to close another day out the top here and consolidate out the top over here to show that people aren't just coming up here to hit stops to then move it back down. And then I'll be okay. Yep, bang, got that one wrong, and all the best to anybody that's long on that one. Well done. But that's not my trade at the moment. As I said, I didn't want to sort of jump into this one early. I wanted to wait for this move to come down here. I would still like to see that potentially, given that we've got a negative divergence. We've got a sort of throw over of this resistance. If this thing holds out here, fine, you can move a lot higher. If we come back down underneath this lot here, there we go. We'll call this a failed breakout. That could then open up to a downside move. But again, this is one that I'm really sort of sitting and waiting to sort of see if that does happen. I'm not trading this in any sort of anticipation, but as it is at the moment, you got a bit of a negative divergence, but it did close quite strong. So again, we'll see how this one sort of opens up on for the week. Along, so you got gold, DXY there, copper, obviously had that big week, and this is what I'm talking about. If it could consolidate out the highs, like copper has done here, then there's possibility, there's chance this thing to move up, and same for the silver. Like a big explosion up here, and as I said at the time, it's different to these other moves where it's sort of shot up. I mean, apart from the fact that it's an absolute monster, 17% in like 5 minutes that moved, or 10 minutes. It was just crazy. But it really was only isolated to copper, though. There wasn't any flow on. Like, Aussie typically could have moved from copper, didn't budge. Maybe that helped it sort of stay bid, but it certainly didn't move with it. Silver didn't move with it. Gold didn't move with it. US dollar didn't move with it. It was really just copper. And I know the idea because it was a tariff for copper, but in saying that, you can still sometimes see these things permeate, along through other markets as well. But we obviously didn't see that. So, look, I still think potentially you maybe got to even come back down here, retest, and then move on. Again, I wouldn't be buying this one here. I'm more interested what happens if we get back around this 510, 520. It's just unbelievable how high this thing is at the moment. But yeah, certainly I would say it's looking quite bullish. It's a big flag at the moment. But again, this one's on the sidelines for me. And finally, just with China, so we had this one put onto the daily. We can see we finally got the breakout. Got the breakout of the wedge. a quick little back test, double flipped, and then went looked like it was going to go, and then fail into the end of the week. So you can see it was trying to set up itself a little channel moving up here, and then as soon as they gave up, bang. But this is what I was saying the other day. It is potential that this is just a back test, a second back test of the top side of this triangle. So I wouldn't count this one out yet. It obviously sort of respected it pretty much to the cent and sort of tried to move up through here. I'm still looking for top side on this, which would lead in with also sort of a bit of downside on gold, and also probably a little bit of downside on Aussie as well. So let's just make this one high after back test. See how this one goes. But yeah, certainly as we saw, a little bit of weak China data coming out this week, or expected to be weak anyway. So if we see that, you may see a weakening of the yen. Of the yuan, or yuan. But for the time being, still very stubbornly strong. It's just a little bit of a slow mover. Like, yeah, here we're breaking out, and no, we fail. But the fact you broke the little triangle, I think, and you've tried to reclaim this horizontal through here, and also backtest of this falling resistance. If this can sort of actually sort of rally on, and we can see US dollar strength, which is what we're expecting with the data through the week, you could see this thing squeeze up a little bit more. So again, I wouldn't be calling this or writing this one out yet. At the moment, this is just backtest mode. Should we get back down here? Okay, that's a failed breakout effort, and the pressure's back on to potentially come down a bit lower here. But that'll only be if we do see DXY at the same time, sort of failing as well, failing back down to its lows, and then you'll see this thing probably follow suit and fail down here as the whole market sort of sells off a little bit of US dollar as well. And just finish off with the gold silver ratio, because we saw this one break this big resistance or support, from back in, when's this one? From back May 24. So it's quite a while on that. It's been working on this thing. I actually put a chart up on X at the time that we were coming into this lower level here, and it popped through here. And this was the second that that silver actually took off. So there was a couple of things through the week. Like I think it was Thursday or something. I think we were at this point here. RSI was in the middle here, and I might look, you know what, the RSI did not look ready to sort of spin around. There's a chance that we're going to come down underneath this, and that's exactly what we did. And that came at the same time you had silver break out. Now, if this thing continues to move down like this, obviously that's showing silver as the more dominant choice over gold. And you could see that sort of silver move carry on. But if we do see this sort of return and then sort of push up a little bit, there is a chance that, of course, that silver play will come back into that previous zone and potentially lead to a fake breakout. So the fact that it went through this level, interesting. Again, I just want to see if it holds. If it holds out here, then we can look at some lower levels, because this is actually quite low. So pretty much right back to the bottom of where we had this box. Excuse me, for sort of 3 months at the start of the year. That's where it sort of found support. So interesting that it sort of stopped there. But if we get a move back up through here, I think that could be definitely not a time to be long on silver. But you know, for the time being, it's broken through. So you may need to honor that and see some more downside with so a little bit stronger stronger silver. All right, and that's a bit of a quick one just for the week. As I said, this will probably be the last video. I might do one tomorrow and that just before I shoot off, maybe on Tuesday as well. We'll see how we go for timing. But yeah, certainly I think CPI is going to be the big mover for the week. All right, that's it from me.